This is John Howell Essential Cuts, your daily rundown of the best from today's show on 890 WLS.
Well, time for a Wheels of Justice update, dealing with the 4 federal indictments of Donald Trump. Special counsel Jack Smith sought direct messages from Trump's Twitter account, according to newly unsealed court transcripts about the search warrant that they obtained for Trump's Twitter account information earlier this year. That's news, and our guest Stephen Portnoy for ABC in Atlanta this afternoon has been watching this. This is the first of a couple different subjects we want to take up with Stephen. Stephen, tell us about this latest move by Jack Smith.
Well, look, it's not new in the sense that this is just happening. This actually happened earlier this year. We're just learning about it now, and the reason we're learning about it now is because some court papers have been unsealed. In January of this year, in the early days of Jack Smith's investigation in January 6th, he had a search warrant drawn up and signed by a judge for former President Trump's Twitter account. When you know that Trump was on Twitter and then they banned him and they stopped him from using it. Elon Musk, when he took over Twitter, which is now called X, reopened the Trump Twitter account and has given Trump the opportunity to come back on. He hasn't yet because Trump prefers Truth Social. Anyway, in January of this year, Jack Smith went to court, got the search warrant, and Twitter was not so interested in playing along right away. They went to court to try to fight this, but because it was a search warrant and it was secret, they filed a secret appeal of it, basically, and they tried to get the search warrant squashed. And the prosecution said, no, we want this information. It's relevant to our investigation, and we don't want you to tell Mr. Trump that we're seeking this information. And Twitter objected to that and said it was a violation of their First Amendment rights. In the end, Twitter lost this fight. And not only did they lose the fight, they also wound up being fined $350,000 for contempt of court. This was all a secret until last week when the D.C. Circuit Court of Appeals opinion on this became unsealed. And last night, some transcripts of some of the arguments back and forth on this were also released. And so that's how we have this information about them obtaining or seeking direct messages and draft tweets and other things. So it's not that we know what they found. We don't know what they found. And we won't know what they found until or unless some of this evidence is offered in court. But we do know that Jack Smith was interested in pursuing draft tweets and direct messages, and Twitter says there were some direct messages. And if you're not too familiar with the platform, oftentimes you can only receive or send direct messages from or to people that you have a connection with on Twitter. So you have to actually actively choose to follow them. And Donald Trump only, from my memory, only followed a few dozen people on Twitter. So if he had direct messages and was sending direct messages to people through the app, you can understand why it is that the prosecutors would be interested in those communications, because they would be within a tight circle in theory.
Are you amazed as a journalist that this news did not leak out previously?
Well, look, I mean, when you're served with a search warrant and you are a corporation and you're told by the prosecutor that if you talk about it, you might be in violation of a court order, and when a judge says the same, and when you understand that, you run the risk of being in contempt of court, you can understand why something like that would be and would remain a secret.
But $350,000 in relation to Elon Musk, that's just a teaspoon out of the ocean.
Because it was only just about a couple of days' worth of delay. And that was a calculation of how much the fine should be based on how much money the company was presumed to have and how much it might cost. So at the end of the day, Twitter kept the secret, the prosecutors kept the secret, and in the end, it was only revealed because all this was unsealed.
Subject number two, I know your time is ticking away, but and I understand why he would do this, but former White House Chief of Staff, I don't know if he was ever chief of staff or was he interim chief of staff.
No. Mark Meadows was, in fact, a full chief of staff. It was Mick Mulvaney who never had the dignity of being called a full chief of staff. He was always Trump made him carry that acting title for the entire length of time.
So Mark Meadows, I bet you he is tied to the Twitter story as well, but he officially filed in Georgia to move that case. He's an indicted co-conspirator. He wants that moved to the federal court. And I see why, because he said, I was working as a federal employee at the White House at this time. I should be tried in federal court.
The Constitution was written with the founders had this in mind, that unless there was a separation between federal officials and the states, that if you had a disagreement between the federal government and the states, in theory, the states could bring federal officials into their own courts and try those federal officials for violating state law. The founders said, no, we're going to not allow that. We're going to say that the federal government is supreme above the states in this regard. And what Meadows is arguing is that because he was working as the senior-most aide to the President of the United States within the executive office of the President, he was acting in as much as he did any act or took any acts on the president's behalf as a federal government employee collecting a paycheck from the U.S. Treasury. Now, Fani Willis would argue that whatever acts Meadows undertook were not directly related to his role as chief of staff as a federal employee, but in fact were in furtherance of this corrupt scheme to, have false papers drawn up and to have, a number of violations of Georgia law. Exactly. Yeah. So, look, this is now before a federal judge in Atlanta who will have to decide whether Meadows is right or wrong. And if it's determined that Meadows is right, well, in the end, all the way, he could have that charge dismissed. Or Fani Willis would have to go into federal court and try the case against Meadows separately before a separate jury that would be drawn from a much broader pool of people than just Fulton County, Georgia, but the entire swath of North Georgia that includes a number of areas where rural people live, rural areas where people live, and in theory you could find a jury that's more sympathetic to the former chief of staff to the former president.
Great information, excellent analysis. Thanks for your time, Stephen Portnoy in Atlanta. We'll call on you again.
You bet.
Take care.
You're listening to John Howell, Essential Cuts on 890 WLS.
All right, Governor Pritzker signed into law our next guest, her property tax equity legislation. It's going to slash in half interest rates on late property tax payments from a crippling 18% to just 9% a year. Let's welcome back Cook County Treasurer Marie Pappas. Madam Treasurer, welcome back to the Big 89. How are you?
Oh, I'm the big 74.
You don't look a day over 34, honestly.
I'm killing it. I just lost 20 pounds.
I heard about that. Last time we chatted, you were in the middle of that, so congratulations.
Yeah, I'm killing it. I'm getting there. I'm up to, they had these 2 knee replacements. I'm up to 10 miles on the bike and 5 on the elliptical. And I just signed up for this amazing stuff. It's called extra muscular stimulation. They wire you up for 20 minutes, and then you lift weights, and your whole body buzzes. I got to tell you, I think it's working.
My sister-in-law did that, and it made her quite buff. I will say that.
I'm telling you, I'm looking in the mirror, and I'm like, I don't. Is this for real?
It's not. It's not inexpensive. You got to be careful.
Well, you know what? Sometimes, at my age, it's worth it because it's all about, balance and stability and the amount of muscle in your system. I've had all these friends who keep falling. And so I look at it and I say, what can I do to build up my muscle? Because I don't want to be one of the ones that's falling.
I play golf with a guy who's going to turn 80 this year. He's been a gym rat his whole life. He's from the South Side. Went to Mount Carmel. And he goes to the gym every single day, and he walks probably 18 holes of golf 4 or 5 days a week. And the guy, if he tumbles, he's going to pop right back up. Yeah. His buddy, not so lucky.
What's his body fat?
Oh, I don't know. He's not real thin, but he certainly has muscle mass, and he certainly could take a fall. But at our age, and I'm just 10 years younger than you, a little bit more than that, maybe 11 years. But, a fall can change your life, and it can change your entire trajectory of the rest of your life.
Yeah, one fall. I have a very close friend who's a physician. She's an alternative medicine physician. She's board certified in internal medicine. And she goes out walking her dog in Florida, and she gets wrapped around the leash. She falls and she breaks her neck. She's 55 years old. So I'm familiar with these falls. They can be frightening, Well, the Greeks say aptopesimo ki aptogesimo. You either fall or you can't go to the bathroom is how you go out. One of those 2 ways. Whatever that means. How's that, Hal? You're going out one of those 2 ways. Either falling or not being able to, what.
I just want to fall into a sand trap, and I told my partners, don't report me down until the end of the round. Let me go. Do not revive me.
Yeah, exactly.
All right, so describe to us 18% to 9% a year once you fall behind if you're delinquent on your taxes. This could be a lifesaver, and I also want to discuss the date. Go ahead.
Well, it's a lifesaver because what we're trying to do here, you got 180,000 or some odd pieces of property in the greater Cook County area that are either, on the tax sale list, abandoned, or somehow or another, they're just homes that need to be demolished, or a commercial building that no one wants. So the question is, when you go to the etiology of that, how did that happen? So, I've been around a while, and what I did was I hired Hal Dardick and Todd Leidy from the Tribune, who did a study on this. And when they concluded the study, one of the things that they said was, hey, listen, Pappas, you're not going to get generational wealth here unless you make it possible for people to stay in their homes. So what they did was they recommended in the study that we go to Springfield and get this interest rate reduced from 18 to 9%, which incidentally also extends to commercial properties that are crashing all over the place.
Did anybody in Springfield complain about the diminishing revenue stream on this?
No, because what happened was I was smart about it. I've been around long enough to be smart about it. So what I did was it was documented with a 30-page paper, which got blasted all over the country. So it got national recognition. And then by the time it got to Illinois and people started reading it, they're like, oh, boy, what's Pappas up to? And then I sent my brainchild, policy guy, Justin Kervin, to Springfield, who shepherded this legislation through getting on board Chicago Community Trust and Villavam and Buckner and Preckwinkle and Welch and Harmon. And so it was like a chorus singing, yeah, we better do this because it's a 30-page paper and it makes sense.
How do you stop other people from just swooping in and taking advantage of this, hedge funds and private equity firms from just, scooping up all these properties because the delinquent taxes were just cut in half?
Well, it's going to prevent it from going on the list. What it's going to do is that these properties are now not going to go up for sale because you're going to have the opportunity to pay on them. What the study also did was showed that we are going to make it more difficult for tax buyers, and Leidy sort of exposed them as hedge funds on Wall Street. They can't come back in after they've purchased a piece of property and give it back to me and get 54% interest. So what they used to do was say, I'm going to take this property, and then 3 years later they show up and they say, hey, you know what, I don't want it because the assessor's website said there's a garage and there's no garage. They would nitpick. They never wanted the property anyway. We were just operating out of a law that they created in the 40s. So what we've done is we've streamlined it. We're going to make this tax sale more efficient, and what we're working on now is a different way of doing the tax and the
How are you getting the news out?
Well,
to the people who are delinquent specifically.
Well, this is going to take effect on the next March bill.
Okay.
So I am going to, we mail out all 1.8 million parcels. I'm actually going to put it in big black bold letters on the front of the envelope that they get and the return envelope that they send back. So it'll be a huge media blitz. Everyone will know because now on your bill, we used to say, if in June it's this much, in July it's that much, in August it's this much. They're going to see that it is much less. It is much less. And you got to understand that most of these instances, these are black and brown communities. Mm-hmm. So we're trying to preserve that.
Cook County Treasurer Maria Pappas is here. In our remaining moments, just this a little out of your purveyance, but what do you think of the new superintendent?
I adore him. I think that this guy is head to toe, fingernails, toenails, hair, face. There's nothing about him that ain't Chicago. I think that Snelling you're just not going to get any better than him. I think that said that we need to be fair with him. And when I say be fair, City Hall needs to come up with a plan to deal with the refugees, because it is not his responsibility to have policemen taking refugees to hospitals and dealing with their social problems. They need to be out of the police stations so he can address the crime issue. But the police superintendent should not be handling social problems connected or housing refugees and dealing with them on mattresses and taking pregnant women to hospital. That's wrong. We need a plan. Let's get a plan so he can do his job. His job is crime, carjackings, break-ins,
flash
felonies,
mobs,
murders.
flash mobs. Those are those scare the hell out of people, not only in the city, but suburbanites as well, as these instantaneous, you can call it what you want, teen trends or mob actions, but whatever, those things, we must have a plan to deal with those.
Well, he's smart enough to have a plan. But in any CEO, you cannot sit on two chairs at one time. You cannot sit on two chairs at one time. You cannot be the police superintendent who's handling crime and refugees. We got to get refugees off his plate if he's going to succeed. And I know this guy really well. I mean, if there's 24 hours in a day, Snelling's going to work 48. I know him like a book. He's that good.
Good luck with the exercise regimen. Good luck. Don't electrocute yourself with that new system you're using.
I won't. I'll tell you what, if I get really buff in 6 months, I'll come back on and tell you what my body fat is.
You don't have to do that. Continued success. Thanks for popping on. We appreciate it. Maria Pappas.
Okay, thanks a million.
Take care.
This is John Howell Essential Cuts on 890 WLS.
No doubt you remember the deadly shooting on the set of the movie Rust back October of 2021. Here's a bit of the 911 call.
Santa Fe Fire and EMS, what's the location of the emergency? Bonanza Creek Ranch has had two people accidentally shot on a movie set by a prop gun. We need help immediately.
Apparently, Alec Baldwin did not realize until much later after the accidental shootings that the gun was even loaded.
The gun was supposed to be empty. I was told I was handed an empty gun. If there were cosmetic rounds, nothing with a charge at all, a flash round, nothing. She goes down. I thought to myself, did she faint? The notion that there was a live round in that gun did not dawn on me till probably 45 minutes to an hour later.
Well, the story's advancing today. Alec Baldwin isn't in the clear yet, legally, when it comes to the charges. I thought they were dropped earlier this year. Let's get an update. Jason Nathanson, ABC News entertainment correspondent, joins us from Los Angeles. Jason, thanks again for your time. What's the new information on this?
Yeah, and you are right. The charges were dropped earlier this year in April, the manslaughter charges against Alec Baldwin. But prosecutors at the time said that they were going to reserve the right to possibly bring charges once they got the results of this new evidence that they were looking at, which included a new forensic analysis on the gun in question. Now, Baldwin has always maintained that he never actually pulled the trigger, that he cocked the gun with the hammer, but he never actually pulled the trigger, that it misfired, it went off on its own, something like that. Originally, there was an FBI analysis of the gun that said that was impossible. The gun could not have misfired on its own. You would have had to pull the trigger. Then the new prosecutors on the case, the special prosecutors who are in charge of the case now, they dropped the charges saying that they weren't sure about the gun evidence. They didn't have confidence that they could charge Baldwin and actually convict on the evidence that they had, and a lot of that revolved around the gun. So they were dropping the charges, and they were going to get a new analysis. They have that new analysis now, this new forensic analysis on the gun, and the new analysis is what the FBI had originally concluded, that the gun would not have gone off without pulling the trigger. So that means it's possible we could see charges again against Baldwin. They had said that they were going to make that decision by mid-August. It is August 16th, so we could be getting word about that anytime soon.
The armorer is facing charges. She is correct?
Yes, correct. Hannah Gutierrez-Reed is still, and that has always been the case. She was always the one who it seemed had become the focus once especially once the charges against Baldwin were dropped. And she was the one, and the proceedings have gone forward against her. But it's still, now this doesn't change that against her. necessarily. She would still be, part of the whole thing. It would just mean that there was still some responsibility on the part of Baldwin, which the prosecutor, these current special prosecutors had said that they just couldn't make that case. Now with this new info, maybe they can make that case.
Well, Baldwin is still on the hook as one of the producers of the movie, right?
Not criminally, no.
Right.
I mean, there were various lawsuits that were making their way through, and those were all settled. And then criminally, he was on the hook as part of the charges that were against him. But again, those charges are dropped. What's interesting, though, and it might come down to this, whether or not he can be charged or whether or not they can make the case. One of the things in this new report that I found interesting is that in the FBI testing of the gun, they were so hard on it that they damaged it badly, apparently. And in order for this new testing to happen, the forensics tester, said that he had to rebuild the gun using replacement parts to reassemble it.
That sounds like a nightmare for chain of evidence.
Well, yeah, exactly. And I have to imagine that Baldwin's lawyers, that's the case that they're going to make. But apparently, according to him, he was able to remake the gun with replacement parts that don't affect the outcome of what would have happened. But I can see where, especially to a jury, they're going to make that case and go, well, look, it's not even the same gun. They had to replace the parts. That I assume that's going to be part of their argument. But again, we'll see what happens.
And they are finishing this movie. My understanding is the woman that was killed, her family is a partner now as a producer of the movie.
Yeah, that was a part of one of the settlements when her family had sued the production. They made him a producer on it, and he wanted this is her husband, Helena Hutchins' husband. They wanted this movie finished. I guess it was basically, if the movie wasn't finished, then she died for nothing. I guess the sense is that at least if the movie is finished, that her death meant something, and that her final work will be seen on screen. So it's our understanding that they've finished at least the principal photography. I don't know if what's happened with the strike and everything has stopped them from doing post-production or finishing up that part of the movie. But it's our understanding, because they moved it from New Mexico to Montana earlier this year to finish filming the movie, and that part of the movie is at least done, the filming of it.
While I have you on the Magic Box in Los Angeles, what am I seeing percolating here regarding Bradley Cooper's portrayal of Leonard Bernstein? The trailer for Maestro was released and is causing a lot of trouble.
Yeah, so Bradley Cooper is playing Leonard Bernstein in this, the famous conductor and composer in this film for Netflix, which people are, there's Oscar buzz around it, just given Bradley Cooper and given the subject matter and everything like that. Nobody's seen it yet, really, so we don't know if it's good enough to qualify, but that's the thought, that this is going to be an awards contender. It's a Netflix film. It'll be in theaters as well for at least a little bit, so it qualifies for the Oscars. And the first trailer came out yesterday. It's the first time that we had seen Bradley Cooper as Leonard Bernstein, and some people were upset with the makeup, specifically the prosthetic nose, that it was very stereotypically Jewish. It was big, it was pointy, it was long, and they felt that it was overdeveloped in a stereotypical way. Some accusing him of Jew face, which would be akin to blackface, right? Mm-hmm. Being stereotypical
it's been done
in
before.
that way.
It historically it's been done before, so I understand why people are concerned about that. Sure.
And there have been lots of issues over the past few years as we go, through representation and who plays who, that historically in Hollywood, Jewish people don't get to play their Jewish heroes, the characters, and things like that. So this is, this goes along with that as well. There was enough rumblings on the internet over the past day that that a statement was issued by the children of Leonard Bernstein. And they said that they have been a part of the making of this film since the beginning. They've watched what Bradley Cooper is doing, and that he's included them. And they say it happens to be true that Leonard Bernstein had a nice big nose. Bradley chose to use makeup and amplify his resemblance, and we're perfectly fine with that. And they say that they're also certain that their dad would have been fine with it as well. So if the kids are happy and fine with it, then, I would imagine that's enough for most people, but we'll see if this continues to be an issue.
Yeah, I mean, that's what was my next question. Is like, what do you think? You've seen this happen a number of times. Does this have legs as a scandal, or because the kids are saying, we're okay with it, does it go away?
I think it's the first look. People look at it, and some people are a little bit surprised. They look at that and go, I don't know if that. But then you find out that the kids were involved and the family was involved, and that they say the resemblance looks fine. It looks like their father. They don't have a problem with that. And so if they don't have a problem with it, it's very hard for other people to have a problem with that. But what will be interesting to see is if this is an awards-worthy performance, if those kinds of questions plague him throughout award season.
Jason Nathanson, thank you very much for your time, sir. We appreciate it. Have a great afternoon.
Sure thing. Thanks. You too.
You're listening to John Howell, Essential Cuts on 890 WLS.
I call him like I see him, and if I see him, I like to eat him. Talking about fine pizzas. I prefer thin. Although stuff's okay, I do not like the real thick stuff. Finally, ladies and gentlemen, our long national nightmare is over as Pizza City Fest returns next weekend. Steve Dolinsky joins us now. He's the food guy at NBC5. He's the creator of Pizza City Fest, the ultimate Chicago pizza guide. He's the author of that. He knows everything pizza. You can see him on Channel 5. Pizza Fest will be happening next weekend, the 26th and 27th, at the Salt Shed. Let's welcome Steve back to the Big 89. Steve, should we all start fasting now so we can take full advantage of next weekend?
Yes, although I would say you might want to get in shape, and therefore you should start eating pizza to expand the stomach a bit so that you can take in more pizza.
But I want to be really, really hungry, and I don't want to binge on pizza for the next week because I want to be ready to go next weekend.
You're absolutely right. No, the way we thought about it this year, we kind of rethought. We don't want to do unlimited pizza because it's a little bit wasteful, frankly, and not everybody finishes a slice, and it was too much last year. But we learned that if we give people 10 slices is about what you can do in about 4 hours. And because we have 20 different pizza makers there offering 10 different styles of pizza, you can get one of each style. And if you go with someone else, you can clearly get 20 places checked off between the two of you.
Hey, it's really a smart move. Plus, it cuts down on the people who pass out because of too much pizza.
Right, and we thought that people are going to be too thirsty when they're doing this because it is, it's a lot of salt and cheese and tomatoes, etc. So we're doing an open bar this year. So it's unlimited drinks, beers, cocktails, soda, wine. We're doing unlimited sides and salads. We're doing pizza-adjacent things like a Caesar salad, which I think is important. And then we're doing desserts also, all included this year.
Steve Dolinsky, you are the creator of Pizza City Fest next weekend. What's the ballpark percentage of people that just eat pizza as opposed to those who take advantage of your salad?
Well, the majority are there just to eat pizza. Absolutely. I would say over 80%. But last year, listen, we listened to our feedback. People said it'd be nice to have something besides just pizza for 4 hours. And so why not have a salad? Why not have something to put on the plate with it, right? We have vegan friends who come. They want to have a salad. We understand that we want variety. So we're adding desserts. We're adding sides. We're calling them pizza-adjacent things. But no, the focus is pizza. And really the focus is baking live. You want pizza that's made fresh. I don't want pizza that's 30, 40 minutes old that was driven from somewhere else. So we have these massive electric ovens. The pizzas are stretched and pulled and topped right in front of you. They're baked right in front of you. You get the slices right out of the oven. That's how you should enjoy pizza.
Also, you have another good 2 days worth of panels. This is Saturday, August 26th, Sunday, August 27th at the Salt Shed. What are your favorite panels looking forward? What do you think is going to be the most interesting?
Well, there's ones for pros and ones for kind of amateur hobbyists. And the ones for pros, obviously Saturday, our first 2 p.m. seminar is called The Dough Whisperers. And we're bringing in this guy, Dan Richer from Razza in Jersey City, 3 stars in the New York Times, author of The Joy of Pizza. We've got a guy from Portland, Oregon coming in. We've got Rich Labriola, good Chicago boy. And that's moderated by the guy who co-wrote Modernist Pizza. So The Dough Whisperers is for the pros. And then I would say for the amateurs, there's a panel called How to Make Great Pan Pizza at Home, How to Make Great Regular Pizza at Home. And then if you're just sort of interested in learning about Chicago pizza history, we've got two really interesting panels. One on the tavern-style legends, so Home Run Inn, Palermo's 95th, and Vito and Nick's. You can't get any more legendary than those three. And then also a different panel called the Third Wave Deep Dish. These are guys doing really interesting things with the classic deep dish, a place called Uncle Jerry's way up in Cary, Illinois, a place called Millie's Pizza in the Pan in Uptown, and then George's Deep Dish, run by a nice Greek boy, George Bambaris, up in Edgewater. So really interesting panels. Whether you're a pro or amateur, you'll find something for everybody.
I see you have the Windy City Ramblers Saturday night. I love that band. Yeah,
are you into Second Line, New Orleans-style music?
Absolutely.
Yeah, so Windy City Ramblers is our headliner on Saturday. Because we're at the Salt Shed, you have to do music because it's such a great music venue. And then on Sunday, we've got a band called ESG, which I had never heard of, but they apparently are from New York, and they do hip-hop and funk music. And they're kind of our headliners at 4 p.m. each day because the event ends at 5, so you can still go out at night and eat more pizza if you really want to.
No, you can go home and go to bed early.
Exactly, early bedtime.
All right, go to pizzacityfest.com, pizzacityfest.com. Steve, thanks much. Perhaps if you're available, we can discuss this next week as well, because this time of day, on this kind of station, on this type of show, I like to discuss food.
I would love to, and if we do it again, John, I'll make sure I send a pizza to you.
Well, thanks. That's not necessary, but I'm getting the band back together. This is I'm breaking news, so perhaps next year we can join you on stage there.
That would be great.
Steve Dolinsky, the food guy at NBC5, creator of Pizza City Fest, and the author of the Ultimate Chicago Pizza Guide. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
All right, you know what? Okay, what is better? A medium amount of good pizza, or all you can eat a pretty good pizza?
A medium amount of good pizza.
A lovely cheese pizza just for me.
John Howell, Essential Cuts. Check back every weekday for another episode of John Howell, Essential Cuts on 890 WLS.